Hey guys, I'm Tammy Anderson from District 1, and my understanding is that City Council approved on Monday the rezoning rewrite, which allows, I thought it was 3,000 apartment units to come in. Now I understand it's 6,000 apartment units to come in. That will drastically affect the balance that we have. We currently have 10,300 apartments roughly, and 10,300 residential single-family homes roughly. So if we're talking 3,000 to 6,000 additional apartments, that changes the landscape of Dunwoody forever. What will you do about it if you're elected or if you stay on council?
Mr. Davis?
Well, if that is already done, and we are going to be elected in next year, so I don't think that there is too much that we can do, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Shelton?
Well, having gotten into this race and meeting a lot of really intelligent people, I already have lined up 2 attorneys that are contract attorneys that have volunteered their time if I'm successful and the people put their trust and faith in me to run. Now, it was already mentioned about the vested rights. We can at least try, at the very least, they will come to us and say they're going to sue us, which gives us a chance to negotiate and I don't know the probability, but what if we get it down to, say, 800 apartments? You know, anything that we can do. But honestly, what I will try to do is negotiate with them and see if I cannot find a way to bring them to the bargaining table. Thank you.
It's for you, Mr. Mercer.
At one point or another, we have to start acting like a city. And what I mean by that is, within the boundaries of Dunwoody, this is our territory. We're putting forth a zoning code now. It needs, in my personal opinion, it needs some tweaking, but we've got something on paper that we can work with. But at one point or another, we have to stand up at one point and say, look, this is not going to be good for our city. This isn't what our city agreed to do. And we need to make some changes. Now, we might lose, and we might end up getting 3,000 to 6,000 more units coming in, and we have to be prepared to accept that at one point or another in terms of our planning. It's not good, but it could happen. But I think as a city, we need to start pushing back on these issues that were already done before we became a city in a civil way. Try to renegotiate what it is we're going to do with that particular area. Maybe the developer will lose interest. That's a pipe dream, I know. I'm not going to pretend this is going to happen overnight. But there is a possibility that we could get something out of the deal by pushing back, and I strongly believe that the council should at least pass a resolution for the city to challenge some of these zonings so we can start taking a look at this and come up with a deal.
Well, I fairly well covered some of this in my previous answer. Again, we should fully explore this issue of whether or not these developers have vested rights on these properties and whether or not we can do something about the legacy zoning that was left for us from DeKalb, legacy zoning variances. And that must be fully explored by the council. I do not get the sense that has happened. And, have the opinions of some attorneys in this area that we do have a leg to stand on, and we should follow up on that and try to protect ourselves from the high-density zoning that was the legacy of DeKalb.
One thing I want to point out is High Street is a billion-dollar development, and they're going to fight their hardest to ensure that they can develop that property. Now, with that said, I don't want 6,000 apartments coming into Dunwoody either, but they're not going to come back with the same exact site plan that was approved by DeKalb County. They're going to want to make modifications to it They're going to want to make tweaks to it. And guess what? They're going to end up being standing in front of city council going, we would like to modify our plans. And I want to mitigate and not go to court, because these guys with $1 billion development, I guarantee you they're going to want to sue the city, and I'm pretty sure we're going to end up having a hard fight. And I want to fight the fight, but I want to fight it to where we can negotiate it. And I think it's part of negotiation. The High Street development is 3,000 apartments alone. As I said, I think they're going to come back to us and go, we've changed the plans. And that gives us some negotiating chips at that point. So I want to fight that fight too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Actually, it goes to Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson.
First and foremost, I just want to let you know, I favor owner-occupied housing. Let me say that again. I favor owner-occupied housing. With that said, property owners have rights in the property that they own. You just can't pass a law in Dunwoody that says nobody can build an apartment. We would not prevail in that situation. The zoning code rewrite that we've just been through, and that's been a 20-month process throughout the city. I'm sure a lot of you have been to various meetings. That had tremendous input throughout the community over numerous meetings, and it has passed. But the zoning code rewrite deals with the processes and the procedures of how we deal with zoning, not with changing the zoning that's out there. So, again, we've got to go and move forward, realizing that if a developer has to come in and they got to deal with any sort of variances or special land use permits, that they will have to come to the city. I'm fairly certain they're going to have a tough time when they come in front of our boards when they're seeking any sort of variance request as it relates to family or apartment units. But you got to keep in mind there's only so much that we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Ames, your question.
One of the original mandates of the city was to control high-density growth, and definitely impacts our roads, all of our infrastructure, and certainly, most certainly, our schools. I'm very torn on issues like this because I am a huge private property rights advocate, but I'm also here to protect the city. And that's one of the reasons I'm running. I want to protect the character and charm of the city. And I think, one thing I would like to do is further investigate the vesting rights thing. I'm not an attorney like my opponent. I would like to have that further investigated to see if there's something we can do about that. If there's not, then the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to really have to sit there and negotiate with the developers to try to reduce the number of apartments. And last, if that doesn't work, we've got to make it work. We've got to figure out together how to make it work. And I don't know right now. I can't even imagine 6,000 more apartments. That so upsets the balance of Dunwoody that I would be brokenhearted. But when it comes down to it, we can't spend the next 5 years in court bankrupting the city fighting that, if that's what it comes to. I'm not up for that. But we're going to have to work on this. 6,000 is a completely unacceptable number to me.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Thompson, you have a 30-second rebuttal. Mr. Thompson, you have a 30-second rebuttal.
Again, I guess I could wind it up by saying this. Again, I favor owner-occupied housing. We've got to do it within the bounds of the law. But as long as we start with that vision, we'll do what we can to achieve those results.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to our fifth question.